Marketing to gamers, to borrow a title from one of my favorite podcasts, is brilliantly easy and stupidly difficult.
Hi, I'm Neil Perkin, the host of Think with Google Firestarters. And Firestarters is a series of insightful conversations with the interested and interesting of marketing, advertising and innovation communities. And today I'm speaking with James Whatley. So James is a freelance strategy director, currently the senior strategy director gaming at the Lego Group. James is also a co-founder of DICE, which is the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, focused on conferences and events. And prior to joining and working with Lego, he was Chief Strategy Officer at the gaming creative agency Diva and a strategy partner at Digitas and Ogilvy. So James, welcome to Firestarters. Delighted to have you on. Can I ask straight away, what is your provocation for the Firestarters audience?
Absolutely. Marketing to gamers, to borrow a title from one of my favorite podcasts, is brilliantly easy and stupidly difficult.
Love it. I love the phrase. So you're going to have to tell me more about this because lots to dive into here. So tell me more about what you mean by brilliantly easy, stupidly difficult.
So it's funny, whenever we see things talking about trends in games, you always know, any presentation you go to, you'll always see somebody stand up and say, look at all of these stats, look at all of this money, look at all of how the value you're missing out on. And the thing you'll often hear wheeled out is there are more gamers than Catholics. And that's true, right? The latest stats, I think, are 3.2 billion gamers and there's 1.4 billion Catholics. And like, great, but I can't use that data. That's meaningless. It's just impressive, but how do I apply that? I can't. And then I go, right, well, how do I make that valuable to somebody that I want to work with? Well, when I say brilliantly easy, you can just stick a PS5 giveaway on the pack on your pack, right? If you wanted to do that, if you're cornflakes, you want us to give away a PlayStation 5, go and talk to Sony, get some PlayStation 5s, done. That's it. Brilliantly easy, peasy, peasy, peasy. Gamer will see that, or somebody who games will see that and go, oh, great. The stupidly difficult piece is when you start getting into, actually, I want to speak to a developer. I want to make things happen in a game. I want to not only make something happen in a game, then make that thing in that game valuable to the person playing it. Make that thing in that game so valuable to the person playing it that they put down what they're doing in that game and then come and engage what you have done in that game. That's when you get to the stupidly difficult.
Yeah, and stupidly difficult, I guess, is right, because it strikes me that actually the environment is one in which you're there for a reason, right? You're there to play the game, you really engage with what you're doing. And so having a brand there, trying to do something and get a message across is actually quite a tricky thing, isn't it? So what would be the kind of tips for success here? What are the ways in which brands can engage in gaming environments in ways that are meaningful and actually work?
Well, I'm coming with a loaded gun, right? I've got experience in this. I was the lead planner on the multi-Cannes Lion award-winning Xbox and Oreo campaign last year. And the route into that was to go, okay, there's a couple of things we want to do. First of all, we want to show up in an authentic way. So the whole thing around cheat codes, and we knew we were talking to an older gamery audience. So cheat codes is a kind of an older generational thing. They don't really exist anymore. So we knew that was a sweet spot, like an older millennial parent was kind of the ideal sweet spot. And we knew we had to do that. So that was kind of the authenticity piece. Okay, well, what does that then do? Well, you could win your Xbox, or you could win a limited edition Xbox with painted like an Oreo. But then Xbox were a phenomenal partner in that they went away and spoke to their developers, who fortunately love Oreo, and we're like, yeah, of course, we'll do limited edition skins in game. So if you're driving your, I think it was a Zonda in Forza, it's got a really nice blue and white skin paint job over the top of it, or you've got a distinct set of sails in game, or you've got a new skin for your Halo character in Halo Infinite. And the thing I loved about that is that these things are like trophies in those games. In these live service games where you're playing with new people all the time, before you get to the game, somebody will look at you and go, oh my God, where did you get that outfit from? Like, your drip is amazing. How do I get that? And so understanding the value that you can deliver with that while making it look good. We didn't design the skin for the car, the paint job, the developer did. We gave them a brief and they did it because they wanted it to look cool and something attainable and aspirational. And so they did that. But the route from just stick a QR code on the side of a pack through to you can unlock this thing in a game, that's a lot of conversations, right? And I think the brief to execution was well over a year, and then the planning was easily a couple of years to get to that point. But then to me, that's around like how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? You want investment. Oreo was really invested in talking to that audience and wanted to talk to that particular passion point. So they were prepared to go to the depths to make that happen.
And just for people that might not be familiar with the work, the cheat codes and things, just tell us a bit about how that worked.
So basically, across Europe, the production of the Oreo in Europe is very, very different to the production of the Oreo in the USA. And in the US, because it's so big and it's been there for 100 years now, I think the production of the biscuit is easy and they can change it, but you can't do it in Europe because we've got so many different markets and we've probably got limited factories and whatnot. But after the Batman work that we did together, we were able to emboss one cookie with Robert Pattinson, Batman on an Oreo biscuit. The following year, we were told we can unlock up to 6 different embossments in a pack. So 12 cookies in a pack. Therefore, you could have 2 of each one in each pack. And then we had this briefing. We were on a 3-year mission to do music, movies, and gaming. We did Lady Gaga, we did Batman, and then we had Xbox. And the Xbox brief came in. We looked at the production. We're like, well, the first idea out of the creative teams was this thing called cheat cookies, where you open the bag and inside you've got an arrow, you've got A, B, X, Y, and then you have the Xbox logo. So there's your 6. And with the arrow and with the buttons, you could create a cheat code. You'd scan it with your phone and you would tell you whether or not you've unlocked something. And you might have unlocked an Xbox, you might have unlocked a TV, you might have unlocked a trip to Los Angeles, I think. Can't remember what the big prize was. But the main thing was you could unlock these skins in these games. And that's the thing that went crazy across Twitch, across Reddit. People were hacking it. It just went nuts.
Amazing. That's such a great idea. I mean, it strikes me what you're saying here is about the need, as you were talking there, about just the need to understand not only the gaming environment, but also the actual game itself and maybe the community that is playing that game. I mean, it feels a bit like almost like, you know, a big game is like a media channel that will have its nuances and will have its kind of ways of, you know, operating and different kind of approaches and you know, cultural aspects, I suppose, in a way. So is that what you're talking about? It's like you have to understand the environment and you have to understand the audience.
Yeah, 100%. And I always find when looking at those kinds of briefs for brands getting involved with games, I'm always interested to see the approach that they take. So I was a big fan of the work that Gray did for Pringles around get a job in a game. And actually, everybody remembers the campaign about, oh, you could win a job in a game. You could become an NPC as a caretaker on a train platform and we'll pay you, I think it was like 30 grand a year, right? But it's like a cash prize and you'll be a character in this game. And that's how they positioned it. Really clever. But not many people will remember the fact that that was to do with the launch of Train Simulator 3. And also how nuts is that to go, actually, we're going to do an activation in Train Simulator 3. And the breadth and depth of games available versus your big hitters like your EAFC, I nearly said FIFA, it's not FIFA anymore, versus your Call of Duties, the big hitters. And, you know, there's always going to be stuff that happens with those games. There's a whole tranche of other games where brands could get involved with those communities and do great things like Train Simulator 3, right? Pringles. You would never even dream of that, but it works. And I'm always fascinated to go, if a brand or a client is trying to do something in gaming, in inverted commas, because you're like, well, I want to do something in the ocean. You're like, well, the ocean's quite big. Like, where do you want to go? How wet do you want to get? Do you want to go under the water? Do you want to go on a boat? And so to me, the the options you've got available to you. That's the thing that's interesting to me. And then all the community is wrapped around it as well. Yeah, to your point.
Yeah. I mean, again, lots to dive into there, but there was one example which I thought was really good, actually, which was a Call of Duty example. I think it was Heinz, and so they created hide spots in Call of Duty, where basically a gamer that was in the middle of a game could actually basically hide and not be killed whilst they went off and got a snack, or had lunch or did whatever. And they were just like branded. They were just done really nicely. So the thing that struck me about that is, I guess what you're talking about there, you're just really playing to the kind of cultural kind of aspects of the game, and the gaming environment and what the game's all about, and it's just creating something that adds value and is not too clunky or just got marketing written all over it. So I suppose a lot of brands seem to kind of not quite get it right. So I guess my next question is really, what goes wrong? Why do brands sometimes get it wrong in these environments?
I mean, just to come back quickly on that example, I love that Call of Duty thing because it's based on a real insight. I play live service games, and live service games, you can't pause them. And there's an ongoing meme of somebody playing a live service game and their partner saying, "Can you pause it?" Like, I can't pause it. It's live. I can't. And I've been in those situations. Maybe in Call of Duty a couple of times. Destiny is my main drug of choice on the live service game. But it's you will go, "Oh, my door's just gone. Oh, I need to get my food out of the oven. Just defend me. Or I'm going to hide behind this rock. Just keep an eye on my body for me." And your friends will just gather around you while you get your sausages out the air fryer and come back. Do you know what I mean? And there's a proper middle class insight. It's born from an insight of somebody who plays those games and recognizes the problem. And to bring that back to your question, the issues come up when there's clearly not been a gamer on that brief, or there might have been a gamer, which is why they've got to the idea, but then there's not really been anyone arguing the case for that idea through to the end, or it's been watered down a little bit. And I should have thought of some bad examples, because I've definitely written about a few bad examples. There's no gamers working on this brief. There's no way, because those things don't happen.
Yeah.
And we're fortunately at a place now, as a quick sidestep, I can't remember where I read it, but I've been reflecting on this, and I think I wrote about it a couple of newsletters ago, around we're now getting to the point where games are good enough. You can play a game from 5 years ago and still have a good experience. And what's interesting to me is that's now matured as a media, and as an entertainment, as a piece of entertainment. Movies, when they reach that point, and they have been at that point for ages, you can watch a movie from 40 years ago, you can listen to an album from 100 years ago. The games have only just got there, which means maturity, amazing, one. Two, people who've grown up with them or growing up into them are now discovering older games. And three, it's inarguable that it's part of our cultural tapestry. The gaming is now an acceptable thing that we do. And I didn't even realize this. I can't remember where, I'm gonna have to find out where I read it, but I just thought, what an amazing observation to go, actually, yeah, because games have come on leaps and bounds with every generation, right? PS5, Xbox Series X, even PC games now, that just completely move the needle every single time. But I can go and get a PS3, PlayStation 3, and play some good games. Like, the back catalogue is growing, and I think that just becomes, to me, that's the most fascinating thing about it for me, because now it's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting idea, isn't it? About how games are more like movies, and there's classic games, classic movies, in the same way that you can go back and you can discover a classic album, that you might do the same with a game. And I mean, you might think that actually everybody would be after always the latest version of everything, and they wouldn't want to go backwards because the technology is not quite as good, or the way they're rendered is not quite as good. But actually, I can completely get that. I guess where this sort of leads me to my next question, really thinking about different environments, because it strikes me there's a huge difference between something like Roblox and Call of Duty or games like that. So as a planner or as a strategist, if you're not maybe one of those, if you're not a Roblox player, for example, how do you understand that environment, and how do you really know how to engage with that community in a way that is meaningful? Can you do it?
I mean, as a planner, it's kind of your job to get involved in that, right? If you're doing again, proper planning, you want to go and do the qual and the quant. You want to go and sit in groups. You want to understand those people properly and analyze them and go out with them and watch how they shop. Just because it's a digital world doesn't mean those rules don't apply. So go and immerse yourself in those worlds, whether that's Fortnite, whether that's Roblox, whether that's Minecraft. The amazing thing about all of these major live service games, a lot of them these days are free to play. You can open a browser tab right now, go to, I think it's play.xbox.com, and you could be playing Fortnite probably within about 10 minutes. And you've not spent anything. And so the barrier to entry is so small and so low that if you're a planner and you get a gaming brief, then it's your responsibility. Like if you were going to spend budget on getting a group together, or spend budget on a train ticket to go and sit in a family's house and watch how they move, get the budget for a console and play that game and immerse yourself in that community, join the Discord groups, join the Reddit groups, find out where the deep cuts are and the thing that matters to that community, and then pull it through to the work. It's your obligation, really, because otherwise, what are you doing?
And these games, particularly like Roblox, has huge numbers, right? I think the one I looked at more recently was about 220 million monthly active users.
Yeah, so, and about 65 million DAUs now. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, huge numbers. So do you think brands are kind of missing out? There's a whole range of brands that could be doing interesting things in gaming environments, but are just not really engaging with it?
Yes and no. I mean, the thing that I wrote and I think we're going to get onto the metaverse thing in a bit, right? But the thing that I used to write about quite a lot, and I work in that world now. So part of my role at Lego is to look after upstream strategy at the moment on UEFN, so Unreal Editor for Fortnite, and our Lego Island strategy and the games that we are releasing on the Fortnite platform. So I'm of that world, and we are figuring out how to get players to play our games in Fortnite. And it's great for me because, one, I love that world. Two, when Lego said they're investing in Epic, I was like, great, I trust them. And three, I've been writing about brands doing terrible things in Fortnite for about a year at least, right? And there was a Gucci one that was terrible. And I was like, there's 3 active players, I think, in the first week. And these days they're doing it in line with media buy-ins and so on and so forth. But I guess there's always the speed to do something without realizing what that thing's meant to do. I was at a dinner party on Monday with and I can't say who it was, and I can't say where they're from. It's a fashion brand, and they were doing something in Roblox. And I said, great, what value is that going to return? Absolutely none. It's not going to bring back any value whatsoever. It's an awareness play. It's no commercials tied to it whatsoever. I was like, okay, cool, I buy it, good. But at least you know.
Right.
Versus, I think Argos did something in Decentraland or the Sandbox. I remember pulling my hair out going, what the hell are you doing? Decentraland has 26 daily active users. What are you, Argos? And you don't even know what country they're from. Argos, what are you doing? And so it was like the classic Jurassic Park quote, right? They didn't stop to think whether or not they should. And I see that mistake happen oftentimes because you go, why? What are you doing? Why are you there? On the Oreo stuff, we knew we were there to borrow equity. We knew we were there to drive people interested in the product, to try the product, to buy the product, to eat the product, because we had to drive taste and get people trying them. England is a country of beige biscuit tea dunkers, and so a black cookie with a glass of milk doesn't make any sense. So how else do we get people to buy it? Well, we stick Xbox all over it. But I'm getting off point around brands. What is it you're trying to do? And that sounds so basic, right? It sounds so basic to go, what are you trying to do? but it's still the question you have to come back to. And as a planner, you've got to stand up to your client and say, okay, cool, but what are you trying to do?
It was, but it's a good question, because I mean, there was that real kind of hype period, wasn't it, around the metaverse, which I have got to ask you about. But I remember, yeah, lots of brands at the time are kind of launching the kind of the world of the brand in Roblox or wherever it was, but just seemed to be there's no reason to actually go there. There's nothing there that will actually, that they can't do anywhere else, or you know, it's just, you're almost creating it for the sake of it. So let me ask you about that metaverse question, because there was a presentation you gave, I think at the height of all the hype around the metaverse,
yeah.
You know, back in mid-22, I think it was, and you did this brilliant kind of talk about how the metaverse is just not a thing. And so basically you're talking about either, you know, like Decentraland, which has very few viewers or active users, or you're talking about gaming environments. So tell me a bit more about why you think it was that the metaverse idea suddenly became that big thing and marketers jumped on it, and actually what was wrong with that.
So there's a couple of things. One, when I'm doing my mentoring and coaching, as I hope all senior planners do and should, the thing I always advise the young uns I speak to is always go the extra click. What's the one thing you're going to do that the person applying for a job, or the person pitching for the same piece of business, or the person on the interview that you're doing hasn't done because you've gone a step further? What's the extra click? And I have to live that. Otherwise, what's the point of my advice? And so every time I saw something about metaverse, I went the extra click and looked at the data points. And every time I click through and click through and click through, and it's in the talk because I talk about the McKinsey thing, the data was talking about games.
The McKinsey thing, I think, was the value that they were putting on the metaverse and saying how valuable it was going to be in X years' time by 2030 or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it was, the definition was, I mean, loose is to put it lightly. And when I got into the numbers, they were talking, all the questions were couched against gaming. What have you spent your money on in Fortnite? I spent money on digital items. What have you spent money on in Roblox? I've spent money on digital items. Digital items equate to this part of the metaverse. Like, these are video games. And the whole thing went viral because there's quite a provocative slide with a swear word in it in the first, like, I think it was slide 3 of a 63 slide presentation. But the whole premise is around, look, marketers don't know what they're talking about when it comes to this thing. And actually, we've spent decades saying that games are bad. The Daily Mail, at least 20 times a year, will blame video games for something. Gun violence in the US is because of video games, not because of their gun laws. So calling games metaverse suddenly meant, oh, we've got a sexy thing here we can use instead. You're like, we're talking about gaming. But the premise of that argument, yes, of course, is to call out that the emperor's not wearing any clothes, of course. But actually, if you want to do something serious with gamers, you got to find a way to get them to put their controller down on what they're doing. I think one of the statements in that presentation said, nobody went to Roblox to visit Nightland. Nobody went to Fortnite to go to a branded experience. They were there already. And if they're there already, you need to do something pretty amazing to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
So do something amazing and think about player centricity. How do you talk to a player who is playing something and get their attention?
So that so the idea of the metaverse, clearly it was overhyped, obviously, and what it wasn't really a real thing. Do you think one day it might be a thing, or are we always going to be talking about gaming environments, really?
So it's funny. I mean, I work at Lego, right? I work in the game department. Game stands for gaming and metaverse experiences. I think I'm allowed to say that, right? So, and when I told my friends this, they were like, "This is amazing! Like, they got you." And I'm like, "No." And in fact, and again, to come back to that presentation, I think there's a YouTube video floating around somewhere. One of my very last slides says the metaverse doesn't exist, but metaversal activities do, which is being in a gaming environment and probably not playing a game. So enjoying a Lady Gaga concert. Metallica just announced yesterday or today that they're going to do a gig in Fortnite. that to me is a metaversal experience. I'm going to be hanging out with my mates. I'm going to be watching Digital Metallica. I'm not going to be shooting anyone. I might be jumping around and pulling emotes and everything, but to me, that's metaversal. And then Tim Sweeney, who is the CEO of Epic, every year at the Gaming Developer Conference, GDC, there's a presentation called The State of Unreal. It's excellent. And if you're listening to this or watching this, I recommend you go away and watch it. And I, in fact, watch it every year because it shows you where technology is going. And they talk to you about where and how it's doing it. And this year, we had a big presentation at the end from Lego talking about putting our assets into UEFN. So you can go and build with Lego in Fortnite right now and create your own games using Lego digital assets, all for free, which is crazy. But the point I'm making is Tim Sweeney's definition of it is literally, it's me with my friends jumping between different experiences, hanging out in this game, going to watch that gig, going there to watch a movie, but it's all online. And I think we are moving to that world, but the what's the word I'm looking for? The interoperability piece has yet to be solved. I can't do something in Fortnite and move to Roblox and move to Minecraft. I can at a platform level. I can stay in a party chat with my friends at a platform level, and I've done that. We did something in Destiny, and then we moved into No Man's Sky, and we took the party group with us. But things I've done in that game don't come with me. I think to me that bit's a little bit further away, but the experience piece, the metaversal activities, they are here already.
That's a really interesting way of thinking about it. I want to ask about co-creation as well, actually, because I know, like with Lego Islands, you're creating something which basically anyone can use Lego assets to kind of create their own kind of things within Fortnite. And so, and it strikes me as quite an interesting thing to do, because you're allowing people to play around with your brand assets, right? And lots of brand managers would probably feel kind of a bit wary about doing that. So, how can you do co-creation in a way that really does work?
So, so there's a couple of things. From a UEFN perspective, from a Lego perspective, now look, to be clear, I'm not a Lego spokesperson. On paper, I'm a freelancer. This is all stuff that's in the public domain. When they announced at State of Unreal in January or February, I think it was January, they talked about, look, you can sign up now on UEFN to become a creator. You can build, if you're over 18 and you agree to your game being playable for 7 years and up, and agree to that when you start publishing, and if you make money from that game, 15% of that will go back to Lego. That's how Lego makes its money on that. Then you can build, but you've got to live against these standards. You've got to work against these standards. Like, there's no guns in Lego. There won't be any shooting games. Like, there'll be spatter guns or there'll be grappling hook guns, but it won't be like battle royale level of machine guns and rocket launchers and whatnot. So what kind of other games? And the games we've seen are amazing because they're pushing genres. There's a game that we've published, that Lego has published, called Cat Island, and it's a nurturing game. It's like a Tamagotchi game where you find cats on an island, and it's completely something that you would not expect to find on Fortnite. Now, the amount of work that Lego has done with Epic to put those systems in place to make it a safe place to build, fine. But again, like, you've seen it with other brands that their consumers play with them sometimes. Like McDonald's did it famously, right, when they completely flipped the golden arches. The most recent ad from McDonald's talks about the way everybody calls it: Mackie D's, Macca's, Mackey's. The Macca's thing has like uncovered a massive north-south divide in one of my gaming communities, by the way. But I think you've got to put the systems and frameworks in place and say, right, you can play, but here's a really clear sandbox of play for you to play in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I suppose the other thing which occurs to me is about that art from a co-creation point of view, just what's in it for the developers, I suppose. If you're wanting to partner particularly with developers, it strikes me like the Roblox currency. So the currency that they have in that world, which means that you can earn, effectively your own currency by sort of building stuff and then other people buying it. It's almost like you've got a kind of an in-game economy going on there. And so as a brand, that strikes me that you have lots of opportunity potentially to do co-creation in a way that has mutual benefit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the Lego UEFN thing is unique in that in Epic specifically, I can't talk to Roblox and Robux. I don't know how that system works so much. In-game economies are varied and wild depending what you're playing. I mean, we could have a whole separate hour-long session about a game called Eve, which is just insane, the amount of money that moves around in that game. But in Epic, it's done by playtime. So if your game is played by thousands of hours a week, then you'll get a check from Epic to say, thanks so much. You're driving playtime and familiarity, and people come to this game and play. However, I do think there are other options for brands. Unfortunately, we live in a world where marketing directors' terms are shorter than ever, like 3 to 5 years tops, I think. And most good games take 3 to 5 years to develop. I say good games, AAAs, that kind of area. You can build a Lego game in UEFN in about a month. But the window of time it takes to build a game is different. I'm genuinely fascinated by the way that movie studios are moving into games. So Annapurna with Annapurna Interactive, Blumhouse at the Summer Games Fest, which was literally last week, came out and said, here's a whole suite of games that are in the horror genre, because we're Blumhouse and we make horror movies. So we're going to flex this muscle in games. Annapurna, whose whole brand positioning as a studio is about helping people tell personal stories to the world. You look at their games catalog, and it's exactly the same thing. They live that. Now that's studios and publishers. A company who makes what is it called the company that makes Among Us printed money during COVID because it went super popular, and they've just launched a fund. They're called Inner Sloth. They've launched a fund called Outer Sloth, where they will fund games between 50,000 and 2 million. I think those numbers might not be completely right, but starting at 50,000. If you need 50,000, come to us, and we have no say over what you're going to make. You come and pitch. If we like it, we'll back you. We'll fund you. I think we're going to move to a world where brands have the opportunity to get behind games and publish games. I would love to see a big brand go, you know what, we've done the activations, we've done the in-game thing. I want to go to a developer conference and put up 200 grand, which I'd probably spend on a media for a campaign for a quarter, and back a game. And when that game comes out in 2 or 3 years, our name's going to be all over it, and we'll push it across all of it because we believe this is where this marketplace is, and we believe in creators, and we believe in talent. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, I think that to me is the most exciting thing, because there's a convergence going on of entertainment, and brands have the right to get involved in entertainment, and they do, whether that's partnerships with ITV, whether that's sponsoring Love Island or whatever. If you're doing that for TV, if you're doing that for podcasts, you can move it into doing it for games, because the development time is shortening and your payoff might even be astronomical.
Yeah, that's such an interesting idea. I mean, I guess it goes back to what you're saying earlier about you just having to do it in the right way. But talking a bit about convergence, I suppose the other thing I was thinking about there is about influencers. And, within the gaming community, of course, you've got people that are really well followed and are just really huge on particular games and so on. So do you see like brands doing some interesting things in that space, partnering with influencers maybe? And
I mean, yeah, you see it everywhere. Yeah. It's and again, because of the differences in kinds of games that you can get, you're going to get your sports personalities playing EAFC. I was at an event recently where Lando Norris was running the Gran Turismo tournament. Like, okay, we just went and got Lando Norris. Fair enough. Fair play. PlayStation ran that event. It's like, well done, PlayStation. But they also had some footballers there playing EAFC. They'll get, different publishers will go and get families, like a parent and their kid, to go away and play a game together if that game fits. The influencer market has matured so much that these conversations are relatively easy to have now. And again, generationally, because gaming is much more acceptable. And I do think a lot of that came from COVID. Parents saw kids talking to their friends and realizing actually that's really good for their mental health. It's really good that they're able to talk to each other and have open conversations. There was a piece of work out of McCann recently for Xbox. I can't remember what was it called, but it talked about the value that parents could see the kids getting from gaming together. But all of that, to me, just depends on the kind of game that you've got and what kind of influencer you need, because it's part of your media mix.
Yeah, I guess sometimes they could be super users or super fans, I suppose, and just really working with people who are really kind of passionate about that particular gaming environment, or else it might be sort of people who just have a big following, I suppose. Different types of influencers, right?
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's by no way at all an influencer, because it's my father-in-law. But my father-in-law is ex-RAF, and he's now a gliding instructor. And he lives in Scotland, where the wind is better and the hills are better for gliders. And he came down to visit the grandchildren. And I had Microsoft Flight Simulator on the Xbox. And, the main stumbling block for people who haven't grown up with these things is, of course, the controller, because what is this thing? And I put it in his hands because my wife was like, you've got to show Paps, you've got to show him. I was like, okay, fine. Put him down. He said, right, where's this? Where are my ailerons? And he wanted to figure it out. And then instantly was a million times better at this game than I could ever be. Put my daughter on his lap and was like, right, where do you want to go? And then flew around with her.
Wow.
And I was stunned. And I was like, that is amazing that I've just witnessed that happen. But I don't know if you want to go and get people outside of games to talk about games. You can go and get a Twitch streamer and go, please, can you stream my game? Of course you can. But actually, I want to go and talk to a parent who's never gamed before and say, try this, you might like it. That to me, again, is where the crunchiness is, where the interesting bits are. Because you go, that light bulb moment of somebody experiencing joy through this thing and going, oh, actually, this isn't running around shooting people. This is actually quite a relaxing experience, or a joyful experience, or I'm creating a creation experience, and so on.
Yeah, I think to draw a parallel, I suppose, like with Lego as an example, you've got very different audiences, I suppose, there with Lego. You've got the kids who play, of course, the games and things, but then you've got the kind of adult super fans who, really passionate about, the Lego brand and whatever. So two very different audiences. So how do you actually create things that are meaningful for those two different audiences?
I wish it was two audiences, Neil. I wish it was two audiences. That would make everything so easy. For those people listening and not watching, I'm sat in front of a shelf of Lego. I've got an X-Men Blackbird behind me, and I've got Optimus Prime and the tall neck from Horizon Adventures, Horizon Zero Dawn. Before I joined Lego, I gave a presentation to Lego, and we talked about specifically the tall neck. So this Lego thing here is called a tall neck. It's from Horizon Zero Dawn, which is one of PlayStation's AAA IPs. And the part of my presentation, I said, it's really interesting to me that you chose the tall neck. Of all the different robot dinosaurs in this game, you chose this one. And you could have chosen the biggest gorilla. You could have chosen this dinosaur. You could have chosen this one. But this one, to me, is about, there's something in the game when you see that, you have to climb it. You have to figure out how to get on top of it. It's not a battle. It's a real sense of achievement when you're on top of it. And I thought you've captured that feeling and turned it into a set. And that was the presentation. And about a week ago, I had dinner with the guy that ran that project, and he was in my presentation, and he was like, James, I need to tell you, thank you so much for saying what you said in your presentation, because you captured what I was trying to communicate. And, we made that product, and I'm really pleased that you saw what we did. But that wasn't one audience. That was, we've got whole different ways of talking to gaming. We've got Minecraft Lego, we've got Zelda Lego, we've got Animal Crossing Lego. But what do we do with this? Let's do a PlayStation thing. Let's choose that IP. Let's choose this thing. And again, it's having the confidence to go, I want to speak to that audience, that one, and no one else. because your classic brief you'll get from your client will be, oh, I want to talk to 18 to 45-year-old people in the UK. Like, right. A secondary audience, everybody else. You're like, okay. Make some choices. And we talk about, I think my strategy books are downstairs. The missus has moved the bookshelves around. But the strategy is sacrifice, right? We talk about good strategy, bad strategy. The audience piece for me is about who you're trying to talk to and what are you trying to say. And I think the Lego tool neck is such a great example of, I know exactly who I want to talk to and I know exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, such wise words. Unfortunately, we're running short of time, which is a real shame. But I'd like to ask one final question, which is kind of like a tricky question, really, because I'm going to ask you to kind of distill it down. Because if you were talking to a brand manager that's looking to get into the gaming environment because they think it's a really valuable audience for them, but they've never done it before, what would be maybe your 2 or 3 pieces of advice about how they can do it in a way that will really be meaningful?
I would say to them, I think you need to think about depth of budget. How much money have you got to spend, first and foremost, right? How deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? Do you just want to do an on-pack promotion? Or do you want to, we talk about game stuff. You can just go away and sponsor an esports event or an esports team. Samsung famously sponsor a great esports team, the Samsung Galaxies. That's their choice. It's just a media buy. So in your brain, what kind of thing is this? Is it an activation? Is it a media buy? Is it something completely unique? Is it something where I'm going to go and back a bedroom developer to create a game? Do I just want a skin to turn up in Forza Horizon? Do I want to build an island in Fortnite? Why don't I do that with the existing tool set? How am I going to drive people to it? My ambition for that brand manager would be to equip them with better questions to ask. What am I trying to do? Who do I want to talk to? How much money have I got to spend? And what do I expect the ROI to be on that? The basic marketing questions, but you need to ask them. Just because it's games and exciting doesn't mean those questions go away.
So that's amazing. It's just makes a whole bunch of sense. So James, we've run out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much for being part of Firestarters. It's been brilliant to have you on and super insightful answers.
Neil, I said this to you before the call. I want to say it for the listeners as well. I'm so privileged and touched that you asked me. I've been a fan of yours, of the newsletter of Firestarters for so long. It means the world to be on this. So thank you.
That's very kind of you to say, James. Much appreciated. And thank you again for taking the time. And if you are listening to this and you've enjoyed the episode, please do subscribe and, of course, share. So my thanks again to James for an amazing episode. Thank you, James.
Thank you.